Not Your Father's Zombies by Anthony Hadley. August 18th, 2016. I really don't know who's gonna hear this, but I figure it needs recorded. Maybe somewhere down the road someone will find it and I'll be famous, but I doubt it. There probably won't be anyone left even 100 years from now. I'm Jay-Z Roberts, by the way. That's Jason Zachariah, but all my friends call me Jay-Z. All my friends who are probably gone now. Anyhow, this is my journal. Well, in case you haven't heard, or in case a miracle happens and it all gets better, the world went to hell a week ago. I'm not sure how it all started. If it was a bite from an African monkey or a disease that got loose from a lab in Boulder, or even an alien plague brought to Earth on a meteorite so the aliens could conquer our planet. Maybe someday I'll meet someone who knows. It doesn't really matter anyway. All I know is that last week, I was just a normal everyday high school student enjoying summer vacation. Then suddenly, everything I knew in this world changed. At first, it seemed like something right out of a movie. The ironic thing is that I just finished rewatching Season 6 of The Walking Dead last week. So much for knowing who Negan whacks. All that suspense for nothing, I guess. I used to joke with my mom about being prepared for the zombie apocalypse. Now I just feel stupid that I wasn't. It's almost like someone knew it was going to happen. With all the books and movies and television shows that came out a few years before Z-Day, you can't convince me that someone didn't know. It doesn't matter now. I doubt anyone's left. Not even those who were prepared. It's kind of chilling to imagine the whole world dead, or rather zombieified, plus the dead that came back that day. How'd I survive, you may be wondering? Just dumb luck, I guess. But others weren't so lucky. I was at the drive-in with my girlfriend Patrice. She was a beautiful girl, 16, short, dark skin, dark hair, dark eyes, and cute as hell. My baby brown eyes. Sorry, I still get choked up thinking about her. I just wish I'd been able to do more, do something. It was a few minutes before the start of the first show, and we were at the concession stand getting popcorn. There were about a dozen people waiting in line with us when we started hearing people screaming outside. We were at the back of the line, so I looked out the door while others rushed to the windows. People were running everywhere. Most were getting into their cars, some just running for their lives like something was chasing them. And that's when I realized that something was. I looked behind us, toward the back of the lot, and saw something right out of a horror movie. Zombies, honest-to-God Walking Dead rotting zombies, had crashed through the fence at the back of the lot. Most of them looked like they'd just crawled out of the ground from the cemetery behind the drive-in, and all of them were running, limping, or crawling toward the people inside. I saw one of them move faster than I thought a zombie should be able to move. He leapt upon the woman he was chasing. She went screaming to the ground with his teeth buried in her neck. I didn't pause long after that. I grabbed Patrice by the arm and started running for the car. Blood-curdling screams followed us, and I made the classic mistake of looking behind me. I'm sure that look cost Patrice her life. I stumbled and fell, taking her down with me. In a matter of moments, we were separated. A mob of people swept between us, and I saw Patrice carried away in the crowd, reaching out for me, calling my name. I tried to stand, to run to her, but I was shoved back against the building. I watched helpless as the crowd she was in was overrun by the undead. I swear I can still hear her screaming my name. I practically fell back through the door into the concession stand. I know I was in shock. I stumbled behind the counter looking for some place to hide. My vision was blurred with tears, and I overturned the butter container in my haste. In my clumsy attempt to catch it, I slid and fell to the floor, the warm liquid landing on top of me, coating me. I lay there for a moment listening to the screams outside, the butter dripping from my hands and soaking into my clothes. I heard a scream from close by, and something thudded against the other side of the counter. The cupboard beside me opened with the impact, revealing stacks of bagged napkins. Quickly I held the door open, emptied the cupboard of its contents, and slid inside. Thankfully, I'm not that big, barely 5'8", and I was able to hold the door closed all but a slit. I was barely inside when someone slid over the counter and landed on the floor with a grunt of pain. I recognized him as one of the kids who sold concessions.
He was the one who always got me the right amount of butter on my popcorn. He sat up against the wall, cradling his left arm. I'm sure it was broken. He looked around in panic, and his gaze rested on the cupboard I was in. He saw me. He muttered a hoarse call for help before looking up. Terror painted on his face. I heard a wordless, moaning scream a second before something else came stumbling around the counter. When I say something else, I mean something no longer living. I caught her profile for a brief moment before she attacked him. It was the woman I'd seen outside just minutes before, the one being bitten by the zombie. She was foaming at the mouth, and her skin was bloodlessly pale, and her North Face jacket was stained with blood beneath the teeth marks in her neck. I watched helplessly as the North Face zombie sunk her teeth into the concession kid's neck. He tried to fight her, but his broken arm was useless, and she seemed to have an almost inhuman strength. His screams for help died away as I tried desperately to hold the cupboard door shut with my butter-coated fingers. It was then I noticed something odd. The North Face zombie wasn't biting off large chunks of concession kid's flesh, like in The Walking Dead. She was sucking the blood from his throat like a vampire. Sure, I thought it strange for like a second, but my main thought was just holding that cupboard door closed and trying not to picture this being done to my poor Patrice just moments before, or me in the moments to come. I barely breathed. I didn't move. But my heart was beating so loud in my ears, I just knew that the North Face, and soon-to-be concession kid, zombies would hear it and my days amongst the living would be over. I closed my eyes and waited for the end. After what seemed like an eternity, but was really no more than a minute, I'm sure, I could hear North Face zombie stop her feeding. Then I heard two distinct sets of zombie breathing. I kept my eyes closed. I didn't want to see my end. I heard them stand up, zombie moaning louder and louder. They were moving around behind the counter. Something brushed the tips of my fingers holding the door closed, and I almost panicked. I heard someone scream outside, and I could feel the two zombies stumble and crash around the side of the counter and through the door. Their zombie screams faded and mixed with those outside. I still didn't move. Every now and then I'd hear another scream from outside, rising above the almost ever-present zombie horde moaning. My fingers were cramping, and I guessed I'd been in that cupboard for about an hour before the zombie sounds faded, and I couldn't hear any more screams or shuffling bodies. No one else had come into the building since the North Face and concession kid zombies left. That's when my brain shifted from zombie attack survival mode to zombie apocalypse aftermath survival mode. I needed a place to hole up, somewhere safe and defensible. I needed food to survive, and a lot of it. I needed a weapon, and I needed to know how, or even if, I could kill these things. I pushed open the door slowly and climbed out of the cupboard. I had a cramp in one leg, but thankfully it wasn't asleep. I peeked cautiously over the counter, but there was no one and nothing in the building. I crept to the nearest window, careful not to slip on the butter coating the floor. Slowly, I looked out the window. The lot was deserted, except for dozens of abandoned cars, some still unmoved from where they had parked. Others pressed against each other in a kind of still-frame demolition derby. It was unlike any zombie movie I'd ever seen. There were no bodies, no dismembered, half-eaten, guts-ripped-out corpses anywhere. Several rows forward, the headlights of a car shone on a badly decomposed zombie with one arm, crawling toward the exit. The rest of the horde, the rest of humanity, was simply gone. I ducked under the window, just in case anything was looking I hadn't seen, and crept to the door. I opened it enough to lock the upper and lower bolts, then eased it closed and turned the final bolt. It was loud. It might not hold back a horde, but it would at least slow a straggler. Next, I slowly, carefully lowered the blinds on the windows. Thankfully, there were only two small ones facing the big white screen. Now it was time to secure the rest of the building and take an inventory. But first, I pulled out my cell. No service. I wanted to call my mom to warn her and see if she was okay. There was a landline behind the counter, so I looked up Mom's number and called. It went right to voicemail. I left a message for her to call me and left the number of the drive-in, thankfully printed on the phone. On a whim, I tried Patrice's number. Same thing. I just hung up. I'm glad she just went with the default voicemail, because hearing her voice would have driven me mad. I put the phone down and got to work. 30 minutes later, I was sitting on a cot in the storeroom, the door locked and barred behind me. The food should last me a while, with what was in the storeroom and the walk-in freezer. The exits were locked and the building was secured. I could survive here for a while. I was terrified. I couldn't reach my mom, and Patrice was gone. I slept maybe an hour that night.